The following podcast contains strong language. Hello and welcome back to the Ciné Rambles podcast. You're listening to Nick
and Andrew,
and we're here with your weekly fix of film-related reviews and ramblings. Now, before we get on to today's podcast, I've got a bit of an announcement to make. So, this is going to be the last episode of Season 1 of Ciné Rambles.
Whoa. Wait, is that a good thing?
Well, no. So we are going to be coming back at some point, probably this year still. We are going to take maybe a month or so off, and sort of we'll come back like maybe September or October kind of time. But this is going to be the end of season 1 of Ciné Rambles. But yeah, so enjoy this one because it'll be the last one for a little while.
And what is the reason behind it, Nick? Burnout.
Mainly I don't want to get burnt out. I do think like some of the last couple of episodes we've been sort of running a bit dry. So like
especially as the last 2 episodes were basically identical.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm thinking if we give ourselves like a month or so to sort of recharge, watch some new stuff, and sort of come back to it fresh later.
Yeah.
And also take the chance to improve the podcast in various ways, you know.
We might be able to record in the same room.
That's another thing. Maybe we'll be able to bring us back to being in person again.
Yeah. Or not.
Or not. Well, who knows how this crisis is going to play out. But yeah, so that's that news. Now, on to the film news. So, Andrew, guess what's happened?
Let me guess. Has Tenet been delayed once more?
You know what? It has.
That's a shocker.
Seemingly, the only news we've been reporting for the past, months is the continual delay of Tenet, but now it has been made.
Isn't it?
It's been made indefinite, but from what I've read, this is like they've taken it off the schedule to announce it again soon.
Which is fair enough because it's rather than just delaying it by 2 weeks every 2 weeks, they may as well just delay it until they're ready. Also, I reckon it won't come out till next year now.
You reckon?
I think it will come out on the 7th of July next year.
Interesting.
Because that was obviously something to do with it. And I reckon Nolan threw his toys out the pram about them delaying it to begin with. And he was just like, oh, fuck it then, just have it. We'll just delay it till next year then. Something like that.
So I wonder, there's some reasons for this. So, for example, one of the things people talked about why the delays keep happening is because China's current policy of cinemas is like they won't show films longer than 2 hours.
Right.
Because basically having people together for longer than 2 hours is like deemed unsafe, if that makes sense.
And of course, America and all its masterful wisdom is just keeping all cinemas open.
Yeah. Because that's,
safe.
That's safe in the country that's probably suffering from it
and
the
they
most.
don't have to wear masks again.
No, of course.
Nice and safe.
Yeah, if it offends your fragile beliefs, then just don't wear a mask. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's sarcasm in case any idiots are listening. But yeah, so Tenet is they say 2.5 hours long. I'm sure at one point it was reported to be 3.25, but that seems to have been cut down, or...
Yeah.
But at any rate, it's too long to be shown in China at the moment. And of course, China...
Too long.
Yeah.
And that's where the money is.
Exactly. So that's one of the reasons it's probably been delayed indefinitely.
It's really bad that one singular, very corrupt country holds the entire film industry at ransom whenever it wants.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's pretty poor.
Bandy, if we talk about this too much, we'll get censored and arrested or whatever.
That's true.
You've seen that? There's something about China's now going to try and arrest people for talking out about China publicly on social media and stuff, even if they're not Chinese. So I don't know how that's...
Really?
Yeah.
Is that even legal to do?
Surely not, because I don't know if this is how diplomatic immunity works. So I think you can't just exact your jurisdiction lasts to your country, not beyond it. You can't arrest people from other countries.
You can't, if you break a law, a Chinese law in England, they can't arrest you because it's not a law here, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
What?
And this is the same logic. This is why Roman Polanski's still at large, because if America just arrest him from Europe, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. Well, in response to that,
yeah,
they couldn't get fucked.
Yeah, fuck you, China.
Questionable.
This is the real reason we're going off the end of Ciné Rambles. We've been silenced. They heard the Disney rant from ages ago, and they finally got back to us.
Finally, there are one viewer. Wait, we've got at least two. So
Anchor suggests it's 4.
So that's Ross, Penny,
yeah,
Matt, and China.
This is Xi Jinping's like, right, so what have we been saying this week?
No, you're wrong, Nick. It's the entire country gathers round one iPod Touch from 2006.
Sorry, it's the iPod Touch from 2006.
Yeah.
You know the iPod Touch wasn't made till like 2007 or 8.
Well, look, they're China. They obviously get technology before anyone else does.
But so, at 12 p.m. on Friday, every week, without fail, the entire nation gathers. And just watches the
great
podcast.
listening. Right, anyway, that was completely random and...
that's the news.
Yeah. So, Nick, we've watched The Old Guard.
We have watched The Old Guard.
Which is a Netflix film that came out very recently.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. Apparently it's been breaking records for Netflix in terms of like how many people have streamed it in its like the equivalent of an opening weekend.
Yeah.
Which is strange because it's not great.
It's not good. No.
Well, so before we get on with the review, the story is there's this group of immortal humans who have been around forever.
Yeah.
Except they're not immortal when the plot makes it convenient for them to not be immortal.
Yeah.
And then there's this girl who's in the military and she gets like stabbed in the neck, but then she's fine. And Charlize Theron finds her and is like, "You're immortal. You're going to come with us now or else." And then
yeah.
And then they bum about for an hour and then there's an exciting climax and then it ends.
Is it exciting though?
Well, no. But that's basically the plot.
Yeah.
So
I think they bum about for an hour is just, you could slap that on the poster and it'd be fair enough.
Yeah.
So my initial thought was, like, while I'm watching it, I was like, this is like fucking discount X-Men and discount The Raid / John Wick, but it has neither the charm nor charisma or choreography of either. It was just like, what makes Wolverine good is that he's immortal, but he's a very flawed character.
Yeah.
And what makes him fun and interesting to look at is that you see him through the ages. You also have the perfect counter to him that is Magneto, who can just, send him to fuck off because his entire body's made of metal or whatever. And like, what made Logan good was of that immortality running out, which they sort of tried to do in this, but it was just not.
Yeah, but the problem is
interesting.
The problem with like the way Old God does it is they start establish like, oh yeah, we're immortal. If we suffer any damage, we just regenerate. And then about midway through, they're like, oh, but then out of nowhere, we might just not regenerate one day. And it's like,
yeah, okay,
well, what determines it? Oh, we have no way of knowing. It's random. It's like, okay, well, I see what you're trying to do, but then I can't feel like tension.
Yeah.
Like it's just that's just the writer decides when people get killed, and there's no way, if it was like, oh, there's a limited number of regenerations.
Yeah.
That would make more sense because then it's sort of a ticking timer on it.
Yeah, at least there was some way to sort of some indication at least.
Yeah, but otherwise just at the writer's discretion. So like you can't be tense over it because there's no, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way to see it other than when it's convenient for the plot.
Also, most like fucking obvious sequel bait in the universe. Oh yeah, there's this character that's been missing for 100 years. I wonder if she's going to show back up in the sequel. She is.
Yeah.
I don't know, what did you think of the fights as well? Because like, it's being heralded as like, oh, the fights are really cool. It's like, no, they're not. They're just fucking flashy and boring.
So, I mean, like, they're not, by no means the worst fights I've seen. They're definitely not. See, this is the thing. You'd expect, if this is like the main selling point of the film, is like, okay, there's these immortal people, let's see them fight. Then you'd expect, okay, well, maybe we're going to get like John Wick levels of choreography. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
No, not really. Like, there's just people get shot and like.
Also, most of the fight scenes happen in the fucking dark.
Yeah, I mean, there's the final finale isn't, but that's
no,
yeah.
but like there's the big one. Like, oh, there's meant to be one in the church, where it's like Charlize Theron is like, oh, I'll hold them off and you'll know my signal. And she's like, oh, what's the signal? And he's like, oh, you'll know it when you see it. It's like, oh, fuck off. This is the most cliched bullshit ever.
That's also just terrible writing. Because like, there's no reason in universe to not tell them. It's literally something for the audience's benefit and nothing else, which is like an absolute no-no.
And then she just goes and fucking kills them all in the dark, and it's like impossible to see what the fuck is going on. But at the end of this 5 minutes of spunk gargle wee wee, there's a load of corpses, and Charlize Theron's a bit hurt. It's like, okay.
Also, like, I don't know what you feel about this, but the fact that, like, because the main characters are all immortal, and there's this whole discussion of immortality throughout it, to me, it drew attention to all these people they're just killing. And, like, obviously, normally in an action film, you know, whatever, that's the point of it. But when mortality is, like, the central theme of the film, all I can hear was, like, that was a man with a wife and children who was going to be coming home. Nope, he's been stabbed for doing his job. There's another one you've stabbed.
Yeah.
It's sort of... And, like, so also... And again, like, in something like, say, The Raid, where they're all, like, thugs and, like, you know, criminals.
They're, like, drug dealers and...
Yeah. They're all actively doing crimes. And this one, it's like a PMC. It's like, these are just men, glorified bodyguards. They're just doing a job.
They are just being paid to protect this person. You're fucking beheading them for that.
Yeah. Like...
And they're like, oh yeah, we try to do good where we can. It's like, oh, fuck
no, you
off.
fucking don't.
Also, the fucking moral crux of the story, right? Which blow me away. They were like, oh yeah, we always try to do what's right. And then, apparently, according to them, what's right is not sharing their secrets of immortality with the fucking world and letting millions of people suffer and die for that.
This is my other, like, major problem with the film is, like, you know, the villain, firstly, you know, it's always good to have a villain where they make sense. They have a plan that makes us, you know, and this villain is like, you know, you've got immortality. There's so many things in the world, so many horrible diseases without cures and people suffering. I want to just take some of your DNA, which you can regenerate anyway, and just try and cure some diseases. Like, that's good. It's like, yeah, it is good. And then it's like, okay, fine. But then what's the hero's angle on it? Oh, we don't like it. Okay, well, you know, I think someone's morals outweigh yours. That's the, like, if you think about, like, other things with immortal protagonists, like, say, Captain Scarlet or, like, Torchwood or something.
Yeah.
They're always still, they use their powers for good. Captain Scarlet is immortal and uses it to fend off an alien invasion of Earth. Torchwood, you know, Captain Jack, he's constantly, in a similar vein, is also fighting off invasions of Earth. You know, they devote their lives...
Same with Logan as well, isn't it? Like, Wolverine uses his powers to fight the forces of evil.
Exactly. They're all here in this one. I was like, okay, maybe...
They're using it to fight the forces of advancing medical science.
But, like, I genuinely thought, before I watched it, my reading of it based on the poster was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be a group of mortal people, but, like, maybe they're, you know... not owned by the CIA, but like they're like an insurgency group specifically to take out terrorists and stuff when like normal military can't go. Like the sort of superstar team of like, you know, like X-Men, yeah. And it's like, okay, so maybe that's what they do. They do good, but they don't want to, you know, they want to be free. Oh no, they are free. They're free to do what the hell they want. They just sit around all day not helping people. Oh, no, just killing people, which is, you know, relevant to them and to no one else. Not for the greater good, not to stop terrorism or anything, just if it takes their fancy. Yeah. And it's like, how are we supposed to get behind these people?
Do you know what else really annoyed me about that film, right?
Yeah.
It's that, so like, the whole thing is like, they're all, some of them are thousands of years old, some of them just hundreds of years old, whatever. They're all really fucking old, right? And they're all like, oh yeah, we've had all this time, so we're really fucking good fighters. We're all really good warriors, really good at fucking killing people. And she fucking carries around this battle axe, and like some of them have swords and stuff. It's like the only reason this exists is because you want them to have a fucking flashy fight scene where they're running around hitting people with swords when everyone's got guns. But it's like, just use a fucking gun. The amount of times in the film itself they just get fucking gunned down when they're running at them with a sword. It's just like, it's almost as if this fucking outdated form of weaponry that's fucking 500 years old doesn't really work against an assault fucking machine gun.
For someone who's been present for 1,000 years of advancing warfare, you don't seem to have picked up some of the lessons we've learned along the way.
Also, why the fuck was Charlize Theron's accent American? She's supposed to be Greek, right? For fucking 3,000 years old, or however old she was supposed to be, right? And let's put this in perspective. She stayed in America for like 200 years, or whatever it was, because she fought in the American Civil War, which happened, 200 years ago. Right? So she's been in America for 200 years, picked up an American accent. She's been living in Europe for 3,000 years, but still has the American accent.
Well, that's how strong the American accent is, It just overwrites thousands of years of linguistic adaptability.
Yeah. But also, all of the other fucking dudes, like there's the French bloke, and then the, God, what was he? He was like Arabic, wasn't he? Or something like that, because he was Palestinian or something. They've still got their fucking accents, and the other bloke's still got his accent, and he was French as well. And it's like, why have they kept their accents? But then because they fucking live in America, they're also fucking thousands of years old. But no, she went to America for a couple of years, and now she's American, even though she's the oldest. I don't know why that triggered me so much, but it really did.
I mean, that was my main problem with the film, but still, you do you.
It just annoyed me. I don't know why. Also, like, the weird turning point towards the end of the film, like, when the new girl, the soldier, when she's like, I thought this was perfectly fucking reasonable. When Charlize was like, oh, here's your gun. Come and help us murder these fucking innocent dudes. And she's like, you know what? I'm alright. I may have a limited time with my family, so I'm going to use that limited time with my family to see my fucking family. And before they grow old and die and I don't. And I was like, you know what? That's very fucking reasonable. That's exactly what I would do. Spend as much time as humanly possible with them before they die.
Yeah, you've got all the fucking eternities to be on your own. Go use your, like...
Exactly! And then, for some reason, that makes her a fucking bad guy. And Charlize Theron's like, oh, well, if you fucking have to, goodbye. And then, the American soldier then fucking shows up later, kills a bunch of innocent dudes, is like, oh yeah, I'm on your side now. And it's like, what? It was so confusing. Like, why? It's like, that's such a perfectly reasonable request. Oh, that film is something else.
Also, like, so, again, with, like, going back to, like, immortality and other things, like, when Captain Jack from Torchwood gets killed, like, he's out for a good, like, maybe an hour or so. Like, he's out of action, so there's still some threat to him being taken out. In Old Guard, they get taken out and then it's literally, like, a minute, and then they're back up again.
Well,
like,
that's the same with Wolverine, though, isn't it?
I mean, I guess, but, like, it's so even less tension in the fight, because at least, like, Captain Jack can then be very easily captured in that hour. Well, they basically just have, like, a cigarette break, the equivalent of in the Old Guard, and then they're back up and it's fine. The people haven't even left the room yet.
Yeah.
Well, I did say, like, so with their lady who got captured and, like, drowned in the iron coffin kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was probably the best part of the film.
Yeah,
I think so. I think
that was the most emotionally engaging part, at least, because that's the, like, one hang-up, if you can't die, you can be tortured endlessly. And I was like, okay, that's, something at least vaguely intelligent they can do with it.
And that's something Torchwood did a lot as well with Captain Jack. And, like, they worked out, like, oh, if he can't be killed, then we can capture him and, like, keep him imprisoned in a way that he literally can't get out of.
Yeah.
And, like, in one of them, like, they basically blow him apart and then, like, they solidify what's left of his body in, like, a concrete block. And it's like, even if you regenerate, you're encased in concrete, you can't go anywhere.
Just to bring back the preamble, that's the same with Avatar, though, isn't it? When Admiral Zhao captures him and he's like, I'm not going to kill you, because if you kill you, the Avatar cycle will just, rebirth you somewhere else and I'll have to find you all over again. It's like, I'm just going to keep you here forever until we win this war and then I can fucking kill you. It's like, okay, that's fucked up.
Well, even then, it's just like, oh, you're just chains on a wall. And it's like, you're not going to put, like, in an iron box or anything? Nope, okay.
No, but, but it's that sort of similar, like, that was at least interesting. But I think the reason I just wasn't engaged with it at all is that immortality problem. Like, what makes The Raid and John Wick so interesting is that they're not going to die, but they can die.
The fact that they are just as squishy and mortal as who they're fighting, and that's why the skill is so much more impressive. Because they're vastly outnumbered, but they're so skilled it doesn't matter. It's an equal fight, basically.
Like, especially in the raid where you can see him just, like, getting tired, he's getting injured, he's got this fucking slash on his cheek from the machete. He's like, the fucking raid is so good. But, you know, you feel his mortality. And you feel like there's so much tension there that when he's got this fucking half-dead guy and he's beating the shit out of these other dudes, that corridor scene is amazing as well. But, you know, like, as opposed to this, where they are just immortal, it's like, oh, he gets stabbed, he's completely fine, and they're just up and at it, beating the shit out of these guys who are just doing their job. And, you know, like, they build this, what is he, like, the head of the private army. He's like, oh, this big hulking British villain, man. And he's like, oh, he's going to be the final boss. And it's like, well, he's not, is he? Because you're immortal and he isn't. And
he'll go down like any other chump if you shoot him in the head.
Exactly. Which they do. Spoilers. We've spoiled loads of this, so it doesn't...
That's the other thing. You're like, can you spoil something where everyone's immortal?
Yeah. And it's just like, fucking hell. I don't know. I just wasn't interested at all, really. It's not horrendous.
No, I mean...
But I'm not fussed.
It's not terrible, but it's in no way good. It's like straight down the middle for me.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll probably never watch it again. You're not missing anything by not seeing it.
If there's... I would never watch it again. If there was a sequel, I wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Unless in the sequel they're like, oh, conveniently they all died at the same time because we decided they would, and now here's a new group of immortal.
Which is just silly, but possible.
Yeah, that's the thing. That is a perfectly valid thing in this universe, apparently.
Yeah. Even if they had, you know, like, every time they die, it takes a little bit longer. But it's like the opposite happens. It's like, oh, it took so long the first few times. And it's like, fuck me. You should do it the other way around. Like, you know, the older you get, the longer, like, exactly the same
that would make
as what
more
they do
sense.
in Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like, that's how he dies, because he just takes him so long to heal that his body just then dies. You know, it's like, that's... but that would be a way around it, to at least put a timer on it, you know, some sort of thing.
I think what we've concluded here is, if you ever have the urge to watch The Old Guard, just watch Logan instead. That's my advice.
But you may as well, because Logan is so much better.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on then.
So, I have a quick thing I just want to talk about.
Okay.
Downton Abbey.
Right.
So, my dad's been watching Downton Abbey, and I've, you know, caught a couple of bits, and I think I've seen the first 4 series, maybe.
Wow. Okay.
When it came out originally. Because I think, I can't remember what series it is, but I think it's series 2, maybe, was set during World War One, and had like some really good like World War One set pieces in it. You know, like in the trenches, having the cool stuff, like, you know, being the British soldiers just dealing with just waiting in the trenches for ages. And they had some really good stuff with that.
I thought Downton Abbey like exclusively took place within the Abbey. I thought it was like it's almost like its gimmick. Like we see events of the world through the house. I
think almost entirely that, other than that one series where they do World War One.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that series is really good because it's got some really interesting World War One stuff in it. But the other what I wanted to say was, why do you think people are obsessed with aristocracy? Like, why do they care about fucking filthy rich people? It's like, surely the interesting part of history is how someone of your status, so, you know, like a Povo from 100...
What are you saying about me, Andy?
No.
Someone of your status.
I'm saying that you're not filthy rich, are you? You're not bourgeois.
No. I clean my money, thank you very much.
Yeah.
In the nice laundromat.
But do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's more interesting to me. Like, how your average Joe lived day to day throughout history is much more interesting than how the filthy rich people live day to day, because they, you know, minus the technology we have, it would probably be very similar to how the rich people now live day to day, you know? And it's just like, why why do people so obsessed with like, oh, here's Lady Grantham and she's important because she's rich? It's like, why do we care? Why should we care? And I know they've got this like, oh, they're all good people, which is fine because they are. And fuck me, what's his name? Hugh Bonneville, he's great, and the woman in it, I can't remember her name. Lady Berry, she's also good.
Is that Maggie Smith's character?
No, but she is fantastic in that, I will say. It's just like, why care about that? And it's like the poor people in that show, like the butlers and everything, they're just like fucking dum-dums, you know? It's like, this is just not okay. And why are the commoners obsessed with this show? It's like, I just don't understand that.
I mean, there has always been like this sort of weird romanticization of like, especially like British aristocracy and stuff. Like certainly in like America, and I guess in the same way people sort of romance sort of medieval times and, you know, castles and knights and stuff, even though it was, you know, everyone died all the time of either like dysentery or being stabbed and everyone lived in very shit and poverty,
Yeah.
But like, it's a sort of romantic image of like historical fantasy. So I guess that's, you know, in a similar vein, people like the idea of like, oh, the old British monarchy and aristocracy, and oh, it's also quaint and simpler times, in quite air quotes that you can't see. But like, and also like, I mean, there's the escapist element of, you know, wishing you were that rich that you could be that carefree, that you'd be catered on hand and foot every day, and you live in this massive mansion doing fuck all with your life. And
but why is that? I mean, this is obviously something. I'm obviously the odd one out here, but I don't understand why people want to see that. It's the same reason I don't understand like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and fucking whatever Kim Kardashian's show is called. It's like
Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, it's like these people are so rich. You are never going to be that rich. The chances of you getting that rich, unless you're incredibly intelligent, incredibly hardworking, or just fucking lucky, it's just not going to happen. I'm just like, what's the obsession? Like, I can understand like you want to see how the other half lives, but I don't understand the romanticization, whatever that
romanticization.
Word is. Yeah, that romanticization. Fuck me. Is this episode also going to be called me not being able to pronounce something?
It's always a strong bet, you know.
Lin-Manuel Miranda, Technicolor, and now whatever that. I think this episode should be called "Why Is She American?"
I think there is a I think you sort of hit on the point there though. Like, because they can never be that rich, that's why they're so fascinated with it. Because like, it's to fantasize about something they know they'll never have, and so that's their way to, you know, project onto it. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I watched the first episode of Downton Abbey at uni and I fell asleep. And for once, it wasn't because the cinema I was on, it was because it was so bloody boring. Because it is just old rich people being fastidious around the dinner table while the servants cater to them, and then get told off for not bringing their slippers at 5 p.m. exactly or whatever. I don't know. But I think there's definitely that sort of, you know, and you know, you can almost make the argument like, why would people like science fiction if you know you're never going to be around to see that kind of future? But, you know, it's the escapism. It's sort of in this world where you could be something else. I think people
I suppose.
Like that.
But, you know, I can fantasize about being a Jedi, and that's fine. But I don't fantasize about... Yeah. I mean, who hasn't swung a fucking pole around in their bedroom like there is making lightsaber noises? I
mean, I more just constantly reach my hand out for things I can't reach. I'm hoping that one day it will just come to me and I can start becoming Tetsuo from Akira.
But I think there is a step between, like, you know, wanting to be a superhero, wanting to be Spider-Man, you know, or being a Jedi or whatever, and just wanting to be rich.
Yeah. I think it's the same logic, but I think this is a lot less healthy.
Yeah. Because the logic, like, the reason you want to be, or at least the reason I want to be Spider-Man, I want to be a Jedi, I want to be a fucking superhero, is like, because they are inherently good people, and they always do good things. And they aren't morally bankrupt. You know, they're always on the right track. They have this moral compass. And I think that's a very good thing you want to be, to aspire to be. Whereas, what's good about the people from Downton Abbey? What's good about the people from Downton Abbey
It's just they have money and have no cares in the world, which is a fantasy. But like,
Yeah.
so I mean, I don't know if this is getting too deep, but like, I think there's an element of like, because the way capitalism works is this idea of like, the rich stay richer,
Yeah.
but then the poor are motivated to fuel the economy by this this promise that
This
one day
could
you
be
could
you,
be
yeah.
that rich if you just really worked hard, even though there's no way. But below a certain line of poverty, there's just literally no way you can ever get that rich.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why, like, the rags to riches story is so popular, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
oh, this could be you, and like the American dream and all that.
Yeah, so I think this sort of this romanticization of the ultra rich is just sort of like an element of capitalism. This is sounding very conspiracy theorist now, but like but I think there is merit in that idea of but by making the sort of the lower classes sort of have giving you these entertainments which have like, oh, look how great the rich people are. Wouldn't it be cool to be rich? You
Yeah.
could do that someday if you just really pulled your bootstraps up. You could be rich one day and then you'd be happy, because you're not happy when you're poor. You're only happy when you're rich. And I think that's the sort of philosophy that keeps that going.
But I think the difference is, like, that more makes sense if in say, like, well, I mean, those are two poor examples, the Kardashians and the Beverly Hills, but at least it's sort of like, the American side of it is working to get that kind of money. But in Downton Abbey, they're born into that life.
Yeah.
You're just born rich and you'll die rich, and if you're born poor, you'll die poor, and that's it. It's like, I suppose that's the inherent flaw in the British class system, which is, that's a story for a different day.
And see, I haven't seen Downton Abbey, so I have no idea if it does this. But what would be interesting if it then use that setup to then explore, the problems with that kind of like birthright of people just being born into money.
They do have a couple of episodes, because one of the sisters, wants to marry like a mechanic, and he's Irish, and obviously back then that's like a big thing, and then they let her marry this Irish mechanic, and it's like this big drama of the series, and it's like, okay, okay. I understand wanting, like, the historical perspective is obviously interesting, and seeing how people lived back then, but just this, you're like just expected to like these people, or you're expected to want to be them. It's like, I don't want to be them. I don't want to live in a massive house with endless amounts of people serving me. I just want to be, a normal human being.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's bad to be rich, but I'm just saying it shouldn't be the linchpin of your whole life,
Yeah, it shouldn't be the pedestal to which everyone should aspire to be.
Yeah.
If it happens to you, great. And if that's what you think will make you happy, then sure. But like, it shouldn't be the goal that everyone aspires to. And, it won't bring happiness in the way that these things seem to make out it will.
Yeah. Everyone should just watch Emperor's New Groove. And that should do. I love Emperor's New Groove.
That was a really straight out of nowhere film recommendation.
But that's the whole thing, isn't it? Because I was thinking about...
Of all the things I thought you could have said, Ben, that was not it.
Because, in Emperor's New Groove, it's about him learning that there's more to life than just being rich.
Yeah, I mean, I now see what you're trying to say. I just wasn't expecting that at all.
But, I mean, it was a curveball, I'll give you that. But that's a great film, by the way.
Yeah, it's all right.
Do you not like it?
I don't dislike it. It's just not. It's a solid 6 out of 10 for me.
Oh, but what about Kronk?
I mean, there's lots of good moments in it, but like, I don't know.
But I like the message behind it. Is that Patcher, he just wants his nice house on top of the hill, and he doesn't want anything more. He just wants his family to be safe and happy. And I was like, that's who you should be aspiring to, not the Emperor, not Kuzco.
Exactly. If your house is not on a hill, you're not living your life right.
Exactly. Get a house on a hill or get fucked.
And now the new NBC series of Houses on a Hill, of all the rich celebrities in their houses, specifically on hills. Nothing in a valley. Get out of here with that valley shit. No, you've got to have a house on the hill or you're not doing it properly.
Have you seen The Haunting of Hill House yet?
No, because you told me not to watch it.
Yeah, it's fucking wank. That's why.
I mean, I will watch it one day once I got through the other literal hundreds of shows on my watch list. But
It's trash. If anyone wants to disagree with me, fucking fight me. Lots of people disagree with me about Hamilton. I'm fucking ready.
and if you want to disagree with Andy about Hamilton or Haunting of Hill House or anything we've discussed, you can email us at cinerambles@gmail.com.
Hey, there it is. Right, we have one more thing to talk about before the end of season 1, I guess.
Woo.
One last Nick's Quest for Truth.
Indeed.
So, Nick, what have you watched this week?
I have watched Catfish, the 2010 documentary about catfishing.
Yeah. And I think this coined the phrase as well.
Yeah. Well, because there's a bit in the end credits where, like,
Where they talk
the guy
about...
talks about catfish.
Yeah, about catfish.
And the thing is, the way he uses it doesn't specifically mean how we use it now. So I think this must have been the original of it.
Oh, yeah,
and
it must
from
be
there.
coined by this. I can't think of it being coined anywhere else, you know.
Yeah.
Or at least it'd be a massive coincidence if it was.
Yeah, no, I think this is... Yeah, I think it evolved from this film.
Yeah. So, what did you think of it?
I thought it was pretty good, yeah. I think...
It's a bit of a slow burn, isn't it?
A little bit. I do like... Because there's this tension of, like... And I don't know if this would have worked back in the day when this was still a new term, but since I knew from the title roughly where it was going, it was interesting watching going, okay, where's this going to go? When's the penny going to drop? When's something going to happen?
Yeah.
And getting up to that's quite cool. I do think it's it is kind of like I was saying in previous episodes about those documentaries where it starts off being about one thing and then organically events unfold, it becomes something else.
Yeah.
So I do like that aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely. So
like,
I thought it's really sad, firstly.
Yeah, I will say there's one shot at the end that like nearly made me cry because it's just such a really poetic sort of shot and the meaning behind it.
So what do you think of its construction then? Because obviously they start off making it about something else. And then it evolves into this thing and it's all like handheld. It's quite retro looking, isn't it? Like,
yeah, well, it's very obviously like it was made in 2010 on like handheld equipment, and you can really tell.
Yeah, like, really tell.
But there's something. Well, so there's an angle of it though, like the sort of the low tech of it gives this air of authenticity, doesn't it?
I think it does, yeah.
But I do think I would say there's an element of construction to it. Like there's sort of I don't think they faked it. Yeah, but like. There is capacity that it could all be actors. Like, it's not out of the realm possibility.
What I thought when I saw it was... I don't think any of it's fake, but I definitely think they construct it in a certain way. As in, like, they're like, we're going to do this because we want this specific reaction. And then they go in that and they get that specific reaction. They're like, okay, great. That fits in our story nicely here.
Yeah, I think the fact that they were filming it from the beginning... and did things that I don't think they would have done. Like I think they egged Nev on to do things that he wouldn't have done normally just because they were filming it, like going to visit them, continuing like to message Thingamabob.
The girl.
And there's this bit which they leave in, which I think is really interesting that they left it in, where Nev's like trying to tell them to like just leave me alone. I don't want to, you're directing me around all the time. This is my life. Yeah. You can just walk away, but I'm trying to just live my life here. I don't want you filming it and telling me what to do all the time.
Yeah.
Which is it's interesting that they left that in because that points to so much construction. That points to like this is a performance almost, but it's also being exhibitioned.
What I really like about that is because that like sort of turns a mirror to the audience, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I thought after that point, it makes it very believable in a way because even though they are like, oh, this is a construction, this is just a project here, but this is my life. You then are left with this sense of, oh, this is his life we're watching. This is real life. This is what actually happened. And I think... Yeah,
we're monsters for watching this. How dare we drive entertainment?
But, you are... It feels very real, and he has very real emotions about it.
Yeah. And it's like, it's really tough, especially there's that bit where he reads out his sort of like sexting he has with the woman. Yeah. And reads it on camera. And that's quite a personal thing to get into. Like, there's a lot of like, sensitive stuff in his messages.
Yeah, and it's like very personal, isn't it? And
Yeah,
he's very forthcoming with it.
yeah.
So is there anything you didn't buy?
I don't know. I believe most of it. I did think there's something. I don't know. There's something off about like the farm they go to, where the mail's being routed to, and like, obviously I know like, oh yeah, she's chosen a random address, so it's not the same address as the one she's using, 'cause it's someone else. I get that, but like, why that farm? And like, I don't know, because I mean that is a very creepy scene when they sort of like they drive up to it in the night, and there's sort of I was almost thinking something was going to happen there, and it's probably something innocuous, but something about the way it's presented makes me think there's like there's more to be dug out of that. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
But I did find not that it was predictable as such, but I did like I worked out relatively like so the moment they sort of went over there and found the woman in the house, like, oh, it's just her, she's doing it. Like, I almost immediately figured out it's just her.
I think you're not supposed to not know that, you know.
Yeah,
I think it's immediately obvious that it is her.
yeah. I did think. I thought, you know, she has the handicapped sons.
Yeah.
See, I originally thought it was going to be they're doing all the artwork, but she didn't, because of like prejudice towards people with handicaps. She was like marketing is being done by Abbey instead. That's the direction I thought it was going to go in, and then didn't, which I was surprised by that.
So what was really sad about it, I thought, was just like she's obviously just very sad in her life, and she's stuck in this rut, and her only form of escapism is catfishing people, you know,
to pretend to be someone. Yeah.
And I thought just her life is so sad. Like she wants to be this other person entirely.
Yeah,
and
she wants to be a sort of young and sort of sexy person who can like go out and, you know, make these friends with people so easily when she's not, you know,
she's got these two disabled sons who she has to like keep medicating or they hurt themselves all the time. It's just sad. Like I didn't feel angry at her, you know, I just pitied her.
I agree with that, yeah. And like, yes,
it's not like, obviously it's not, she shouldn't have done it, but it's not like a terrible. What I'm trying to say is she obviously shouldn't have done it, but she didn't do it out of malice, I don't think. Yeah. She did it just out of escapism and because she didn't know what else to do.
And what I like about it is the whole sort of like last act of the film is so sensitive in that they deliberately say like we're not going to just go and confront her like, you know, an expose like a Michael Moore. I just want, you know, or you can have a gentle like honest conversation with her and just, you know, work it out. And I love that final scene where she's painting Nev and they're just chatting about it all.
Yeah,
I think that's a really sensitive sort of touching moment. And yeah, there's that wide shot. You know, so he's like, "Oh, can you talk to me as her?" I've forgotten what the girl's name was.
Is it Megan?
Yeah, Megan. It's like, "Can you talk to me as Megan?" There's this great moment. She just like stares at him and like tries to get into character, and like and he sort of hears her voice again. And it's just this little wide shot that holds them and this silence of them staring at each other. And it's like, that's such a powerful little moment of cinema. Like that, you know, basically no words, just with a look. There's so much that's sort of, you know, presented there.
Yeah.
That was like a really like, so that whole third act I thought was really well done. And I like that he still stayed friends with her.
Yeah, I think he was a really nice man, isn't he?
Yeah.
Neve.
Oh, sorry, Neve.
Yeah.
See, when I see Nev, I normally...
It's Nev, isn't it?
It's Nev, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's Neve because he's Greek or something, isn't he?
Yeah, he was...
And it's short for something else.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen the Catfish TV show?
I have seen bits of it. Like, so I was saying a couple of weeks ago, whenever we go on holiday and me and my sister are in the same room, we end up watching Catfish because especially in like Spanish-speaking countries, it seems to be one of the only things that's on in English.
Yeah, when I went to Portugal, it's the only thing that was on.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were in Portugal as well. So I've watched some like random episodes just while I've been on holiday before, and that's much more like, you know, the expose kind of like. Almost like a true crime documentary in the sense of like, we found this woman, she's doing this online, we're at her house right now, we've got the camera on, it's you, and then, you know, it's all a lot more confrontational, or this is a lot more of a sensitive
Yeah,
piece, I
definitely.
think.
It's a lot more confrontational. And I think they lose the personal touch. So obviously he's trying to help people. So in Catfish, I think we didn't really explain, but he gets catfished by this woman who pretends to
Yeah.
be about 16 different people, is it? Or something like that?
Yeah, she
Oh,
sort of has
God.
this whole network of made-up characters she acts as in order to create this fake world of people.
Yeah. And she was acting as a whole family, including Megan, who Neve, like, falls for. And, they're talking and have, like, this long-distance relationship and whatever.
Yeah.
So then in the TV show, he goes around America. People tell him, like, oh, I think I'm being catfished. Or someone says, oh, I think my mate's being catfished or whatever. Can you go and help them? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so, yeah, he goes around America helping these people who think they've been catfished. And it's sort of... So the series is okay, I think. But it definitely loses that personal touch.
Yeah.
Because it's not about him, or, he's not directly involved, it is a lot more expository and it is a lot more confrontational. Like, he's just like,
Yeah.
oh, let's go and sort this shit out. Whereas in his own, he's, like, very gentle and very sort of kind and pitying, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, and again, because it's his life and his relationship, so he brings that sort of that sensitivity to it and that sort of tenderness. Well, I think with the series, there's a lot more distance to it and a lot more sort of coldness.
So, would you recommend it?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was a really good watch. It's like 80 minutes, so
it's not long.
It's short
all,
and sweet.
Yeah.
And
so
it's surprisingly heartwarming as well.
It is heartwarming. Although I really like at the end. So when they go to the woman's house, it's like very clear that Megan isn't real. Abbey is real, but Megan isn't real.
Yeah.
And this woman made her up, and she was playing all these characters. And he's like, "Oh, can I speak to Megan? Can I meet Megan?" And she's like, "No, Megan's in rehab."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then she tells the truth about everything else, or almost everything else. And then right at the end, you've got this screen and some text comes over, and it's like, we double checked with the rehab center that she says Megan was in. Megan does not exist. It's like, so that woman still lied to him just every single step of the way.
Yeah.
And it does make you wonder, like, what else was she actually lying about?
Yeah. That is a really good point actually. That even with what seems to be this whole honest confession, we still can't trust the nature of it, and that is documentary making.
Also, you have this. It's such a it feels very like a complete story, and then you just have that one bit at the end that's like,
that one little loose thread, which if you keep pulling, it just all keeps going. Yeah.
I really liked Catfish. I was think it's good, but also it's very different from other sort of documentaries.
Yeah,
because it's got this very homemade feel, and I think that wouldn't, especially back then, that wouldn't have been out of place if you saw that on YouTube.
Yeah, it does feel almost like an extended YouTube video in a way. I think it's quite inspiring as well because I think documentary is a genre where you can get, more leverage on this. But the idea that, anyone can make a film. Technology isn't an obstacle. If you've got a story to follow, make it on a phone and it can work still. And I like that. It was kind of inspirational seeing such a low-tech sort of basically no budget documentary being made and still being this really tender, genuine film.
You should watch 5 Cameras.
I shall.
Because that's another...
Put them on the list.
Well, I mean, it's got nothing to do with Catfish, but that's another sort of very... So that's just about a Palestinian man who has had 5 cameras throughout his life, and it's about how each one of them broke. And, dealing with invasion and war and police brutality. Which is nothing to do with Catfish, really, but it's got that very...
That's not sweet and sensitive.
No, but it's got that very homemade vibe, he's just got these cameras from 2005 or whatever.
It's like For Sample was quite similar as well. That's just all on a Canon DSLR. But it feels so homemade and so genuine and authentic. And that's a really good documentary.
I think that homemade feel does make it a lot more believable, because you know that a studio hasn't got involved, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to believe because there's so much less budget, like, manipulation.
Yeah. It is someone's literally just grabbed the nearest camera and just started recording what's happening, rather than like
Yeah.
it suggests the idea that there's no setup in terms of
Yeah.
like, which of course there probably still is.
But it was made on a budget of $30,000, which is nothing, is it? It's a micro budget.
Yeah.
And I mean, most of that was probably travel, wasn't it? Expenses.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if does the plane over to thingy count in that
Yeah.
budget, presumably?
And like, they obviously didn't buy. They already had the cameras, because I think the two guys that made it. So it was Neve's brother and his mate, and I think they were both film students, weren't they?
Yeah, well, because Neve was a photographer, wasn't he?
Neve was a photographer, yeah.
So he certainly has like sort of camera equipment to hand.
And I think these two friends, like, so Neve's brother and whatever his mate was called, they were like, this was a university project or something, or you know, some sort of.
I mean, he had access to a lav mic, so they must have had some kind of.
But I think it really lends itself to the truth. I believed everything about it. Like, there was no point I was like, oh, that's obviously bullshit,
No.
There was a couple of things where I thought this was set up, like we said earlier.
I think that there's definitely things that wouldn't have happened naturally and have been forced to happen for the camera.
Yeah, like, when they do the whole thing about they find the music, and that's how they first cotton onto it.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'm a musician, this is my music. And then they find exactly the same music by someone else.
Yeah, because that seems like a really strange thing to do if you're trying to keep up to your... That's a very easy thing to fact check, isn't it?
Yeah, but also, like, that felt staged, because why would you double check that? Why would you just, someone sends you a song, you're like, oh, that's nice, If you sent me a song being like, oh, I made this myself, I wouldn't then go out and be like... Is he bullshitting me,
Well, true, but Andy, if I said, Andy, I've written and recorded this song and I'm performing on it, what do you think? And you listen to it and it sounds good. Would you not then immediately question how I sing well? How I've written a good song?
But
how I've studio produced it?
If there was no doubt that you were a musician, if you were like, if you were... So Ed, Ed, our friend Ed, who is a musician... Yeah. If he sent me a song being like, oh, I made this song, I just wouldn't question it, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely you, that's fine. So I think it is probably, I reckon the directors were like egging him on, like, oh, you should double check that, you should do something about this, make sure it's real. Something, like, there was obviously some manipulation there.
What did strike me about that actually is like, because they have she sends lots of songs which are by different artists, the covers. I think, and it's like, and I get they're also like similar kind of ranged female voices kind of thing. But like, even that, like...
Well, wasn't it supposed to be like, oh, this one was by me, this one was by my mum? Something like that, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, maybe. But I think the point was she was still supposed to be in all of them in some degree.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, I find that, I don't know, questionable. Like, surely you'd be like, these voices sound different.
Yeah. And then what's really sad is like how intensely he falls for her.
Yeah.
And how, it's just not true, and it's like you feel like you really feel for him because he's missed out because this woman's just been lying to him.
And that's what ending's so powerful. It's just like this sort of the graveness, this woman he fell in love with who's just doesn't exist. She might as well have died,
But that bit with the music, when it's like the bit earlier when she first sends him a song and he's like, you see him walking around his like art studio, like singing the song, and he's like really loving it. It's like, oh, she's really good singing, I think she might be the one for me or whatever. And then later you see him just being like, that's not her. This is what's going on. Why would she do this to me?
Yeah.
It's I thought it was good. Do you think it's good?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good film.
I recommend.
Absolutely.
How does it hold up on the truth meter?
The truth meter.
Yeah.
What's the range of the truth meter? What are we scaling it as?
So as, I don't know, what's inherently. I mean, nothing is inherently 100% truthful.
Yeah, well, you can't spring these mechanics on me without.
So, well, what is so far out of the documentaries we've talked about? What do you think has been the most truthful one? So, out of this, I'm Not Your Negro, and Touching the Void.
I'd say I'm Not Your Negro is probably the most truthful, because that seems the most. It's like I said, it's like almost just like a Wikipedia thing being read out.
Yeah,
Like it's even even if the stuff that's being read out is still a subjective account, it's still just a straight reading of those sort of writings and interviews.
Yeah.
I think out of the three, Catfish is definitely the most embellished one. I think it's the one with the most room for things to have been manipulated.
Which is interesting you say that, considering Touching the Void was reconstruction.
But that's like, because Touching the Void has there are only two perspectives on this,
Yeah.
and they we're hearing them, we're hearing both of them. So I don't know. I think that, I mean, again, there will be things that have been embellished a bit, but I think there's a most of Touching the Void is like as it happened, because you get so much detail from the people where it happened to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more players in Catfish for one thing. Like, who knows what some other minor character might know. But we never hear from say Vince. I mean, we hear a bit from Vince, but there might be a whole perspective from him that could add a whole new angle to this that we don't even know. It could have been recorded and cut. We definitely have an interview with him. Who knows what else he said in that interview, for example.
Yeah. Okay. So
if you want a truth ranking, it's I Am Not Your Negro, Touching the Void, Catfish, I guess.
Catfish is the least truthful. But
again, I think they're all pretty reasonably reliable.
Pretty good. And what about Tiger King then?
Tiger King I think is the most manipulated of all of them. If we're counting that
100%.
Yeah, and again, there's so many players in it.
Should we have the League of Truthfulness?
Yeah. The League of Truthfulness.
Yeah.
A little ranked table of how truthful
we'll have a ranked table. I like that, actually.
Okay.
The League of Truthfulness. Sure.
Well, so for when we come back to this segment eventually, what should we watch? What will be the next on the quest for truth?
Well, so 13th, I think.
13th, yeah?
Yeah,
okay.
because that's really, really good.
Yeah.
So, and that's 2016, but it's a BLM film. It's really, really, really powerful, and I want to know your opinion on it, because it might genuinely be one of the best documentaries I've seen.
Oh wow, that's quite a statement. Okay,
it's just so hard to not agree with.
Would you say it's better than Senna then?
I don't know if it's better. The thing is, they're very different, I think.
Yeah.
Senna is definitely to entertain and to celebrate.
Yeah.
Whereas 13th is to be like, look how fucked up this is. you know? To inform, to try and change your opinion. Whereas Senna is a celebration of a life.
Well, and that's the debate, which we don't have time for today. But the debate of what is... Yeah, we'll revisit Senna. But there is the discussion of what's a better documentary, one that's entertaining or which is informative, which is is there a best type of documentary? But one day we'll talk about
that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, okay. So that brings it to close for this week's episode. You've listened to Ciné Rambles with Nick
and Andrew.
For more updates about when we return and our other projects, you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CinéRamblesOfficial.
And you can follow us on Twitter at Ciné Rambles.
For more content, as always, you can read the blog over at cinerambles.blogspot.com.
And you can email us at cinerambles@gmail.com.
So, Andy, you got any final remarks for the season? Big burden.
Big burden. I swear I can speak real words, okay?
It's yet to be seen.
I done good English.
Me fail English? That's impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Ralph Williams, my spirit animal. Anyway, bye.
Goodbye.